Hey everyone, Jack here, TalkNorwichCity. Welcome back to another video. Hope you're all doing very well. Birmingham City, the opponents for Norwich City this weekend in a really big championship game actually. Norwich looking to bounce back from 2 defeats in a week. The first of the defeats, a crushing 6-2 scoreline to Plymouth Argyle. Still not quite over it. Trying to put it to the back of my mind. Equally, it's kind of popping up in my nightmares from time to time. So we'll be assessing that in this video. We of course faced Fulham during the week as well, and there are a couple of points I wanted to discuss from that performance. Before we get into that, you may know that we've launched our brand new merch store. We've got one product on sale at the moment. It's a Johnny Rowe t-shirt. We are offering free delivery this weekend. So if you want one and you haven't already got yourself one, now's a good time. The link's in the description. Most people have just been paid. Free delivery all weekend. Links in the description to that. Head over there. All profits go back into the channel to hopefully keep creating content that you enjoy. So I was at the Fulham game on Wednesday. First of all, I thought the support from the Norwich City faithful once again was absolutely majestic. I don't get to as many Norwich games as I'd like nowadays in terms of the away games. But whenever I do go, I am always amazed by the rallying cries of the travelling support, the amount that we travel in terms of numbers. There were probably as many Norwich fans as Fulham at Craven Cottage on Wednesday night, and we knew that we were going to be playing a heavily rotated side in a cup competition after being thrashed by Plymouth, and yet still we sung loudly throughout, and I thought it was absolutely brilliant. There was some, I think, positives to take away from that game in the week. I think there were a couple of players in there that I haven't seen too much of, that I was really impressed by. I thought we'll start with Jayden Warner in at centre-back, 20 years old, his Norwich City debut. And I thought he was really shrewd on the ball, actually. And it's pleasing to know that there's another centre-back in there that, if needed, we can probably rely on. So you've got Ben Gibson and you've got Shane Duffy, who've been the pairing so far this season. I think many would question whether it should be that pairing going into the Birmingham game after we conceded 6 against Plymouth. You've, of course, got Danny Bart, who we brought in very late in the transfer window, who could do a job, and I suspect will be third choice at the moment. And then you've got Jayden Warner. My worry before I saw that performance from Warner, and look, it was a cup game up against a rotated Fulham side, but it was still a strong Fulham side. My worry was that I think we're light in the centre-back unit with Hanley out injured. And actually, you've got 4 centre-backs there who are fit at the moment and I think can do a job. We'll discuss later on if either Gibson or Duffy should be dropped. But Warner's there, which is good. The other one that I hadn't seen too much of, more than Warner, but still not too much of, was Kellen Fischer, who there were moments of naivety from him in that game. He's still only 19 years old, was playing non-league football last year. And certainly in terms of, going forwards, he looked a real threat. There were a couple of moments where positionally I thought he was, lacked that experience. No wonder he's 19. But an exciting prospect nonetheless is Fischer. And I can see why, Norwich City were probably happy to let go of Ballymumba, knowing that they've got Fischer in at backup. He's certainly not at Ballymumba's level yet, but hopefully with time that will come. I thought on the whole, the performance wasn't too bad. It was a scrappy first kind of 15 minutes. Fulham could have quite easily scored a few more. Equally, we should have probably been on the score sheet more than once. So that was great. The other player that I want to mention, and I think should be starting this weekend actually, or at least if he's not starting, definitely in the mix, is Borja Sainz. Now, I hadn't seen Borja Sainz because of the injury, and I didn't know who he was before he came to Norwich City. Very impressive. There were a couple of moments where I think he just released the ball a little bit too late. But got a goal on debut. Wagner said the only concern with him at the moment is fitness levels, to be expected after returning from injury. But there was an aura about Sainz. There was a man there who wanted the ball and he would take the game by the scruff of the neck and drive it forwards. And I think we've often lacked that in the last couple of seasons. A player that will happily progress the ball forwards. There was an urgency about his play and a real tenacity. Again, not comparing here because very different players, and Buendia is certainly better than Borja Sainz, but there was a element of Buendia's play that I saw in that cameo from Sainz against Fulham. So I'm hoping we see him. Well, Wagner's already said he'll be in the squad for the Birmingham game. I'm hoping that we see quite a bit of him over the next few weeks. So that was exciting. The other one I thought was impressive was Boyeta. Look, still a very unpolished diamond, but there's pace about him. And I think Wagner really likes him, so wouldn't be shocked if we saw him this weekend. Now, Birmingham. Big game this for Norwich because, we've dropped down the table somewhat. 3 defeats in 4. We're down to 8th. Birmingham, very similar start to Norwich City, just a point behind us. There's a feel-good mood around Birmingham at the moment, particularly with the kind of change in ownership. But, much like us, haven't been in the best recent form. They've not won in 5. Before that, they'd won 4 consecutive games. So, a season of kind of yin and yang for Birmingham City so far. And this is big for Norwich because, we need to bounce back from that game against Plymouth. And the circumstances of that defeat were harrowing. But I'm still trying to say to myself, and maybe I'm being deluded here, and actually, at the start of the season, I said a mid-table finish was probably about the line for Norwich this season, and based on current evidence, that's probably what we've seen from City so far. I just thought that Plymouth performance, particularly defensively, was so bad that it just would not be replicated again. And my hope is that we've had that real shock that we change our ways going forwards. I mean, there were absolutely no excuses for the majority of those goals against Plymouth, and the collapse was absolutely unforgivable. Having said that, the whole kind of mentality of, well, we've been thumped to Plymouth, let's rip up the whole thing and start again, isn't a kind of thought process that I'm buying into. I think the team should be relatively unchanged. I think it probably will be. That central defensive partnership is going to be fascinating to see what Wagner does, because I think actually on the whole this season, Gibson and Duffy have been really good. But if Danny Bart comes in, or even Jayden Warner comes in, which would be a shock, you can see the thinking from Wagner. And maybe the Gibson and Duffy partnership is set more for kind of a physical battle where that there's going to be, long balls thrown into the box, lots of aerial duels, because actually they've dealt really well with that this season. It's been like we saw against Plymouth with, Morgan Whittaker and co running at you. That's what they struggled with. So that's going to be fascinating. And also that midfield pairing as well, because I think in the last couple of games, defensively, we've been really wide open. So whether he switches it up slightly there is going to be fascinating as well. I don't think there's going to be too many changes though. And I think actually on the whole this season, Norwich City have looked pretty good, better than I expected. Now, granted, certainly not in that Plymouth game, but the majority of the other games, I don't think we've looked too bad in. I think the defeat away to Rotherham was poor. Actually, I thought we were quite good in defeat to Leicester. And other than that, the league form's been pretty solid. Lots of wins in there, draw, and a few other sort of cup games. So I think my messaging is don't rip up the good work that's been done so far because of one absolute howling result. If we see something really poor against Birmingham, then we may have to go back to the drawing board. But I would be sticking with things. There's a couple of things I want to happen. I want to see Sainz either start or introduced into the game early, because I think he'll have a real impact. And I'm fascinated to see what happens with that central defensive pairing. The other one to keep an eye on is Angus Gunn. They've said there's going to be a late kind of medical on him going into this game. George Long is fit and ready to go, and I thought actually was pretty good against Fulham. So there we go. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Would you make any changes from the Plymouth game? What did you think of the young lads against Fulham? And how are you feeling going into this Birmingham game? I'm feeling relatively confident, I think, based on recent happenings, but I'm feeling relatively good. And I think Norwich will bounce back here. So hopefully my optimism / delusion isn't spat back in my face as it often is. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you all again very soon. Bye-bye.